Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for our fifth in a series of six winemaker panel discussions hosted by the Consortio Franciacorta for the month of June as part of our first digital festival. My name is May Matta-Aliah. I am the educational ambassador for Franciacorta here in New York. I will be moderating this discussion and our final discussion coming up next Monday. And by way of a brief introduction for anyone who's not been joining us for the last few weeks, Franciacorta is a sparkling wine. It's produced in the Lombardia region of northern Italy. It's a small wine producing region. Annual production of that wine region hovers at around 17 million bottles a year. Today, we are focusing on the Dosagio Zero wines. And to kick off the conversation, I would actually like to borrow the words of a famous wine writer, Karen O'Keefe, who's a highly regarded wine critic, author, and Italian editor for The Wine Enthusiast. So quoting her words, the array of names for this style, including Padose, Dosaggio Zero, or Brut Nature, may be a bit confusing, but the best are bone dry, with an almost knife-like precision. Boasting structure and finesse, they are loaded with energy, flavor, and character, featuring pristine fruit and savory mineral notes. Of all the different versions of Dosagio Zero, Dosagio Zero is the purest expression of Franciacorta's terroir. So I don't think I could have done a better job of describing Dosagio Zero wines, but I'm delighted to welcome our panelists today. I'll be introducing them in the order that they're appearing on my screen. They've all been at the forefront of advocating for the drier styles of Franciacorta. So we're in great hands today, and I'm very much looking forward to the discussion. So starting with Stefano Camilucci from the Camilucci Winery. Stefano is the owner of the Camilucci Winery, which states its characteristics are passion, research, meticulous attention to detail, with an eye to the past, but a face towards the future. He brings together careful, innovative winemaking aimed at creating a modern, natural, and most importantly, authentic product. Next, we're joined by Giuseppe Volpato from the Elisabetta Abrami Winery. Giuseppe, with his mother, Elisabetta, owned the Elisabetta Abrami Winery. So how wonderful to be working with your mother. Passion for wine and for the land, along with family and entrepreneurship, are the ingredients that drive the work ethic at this winery. A deep love for the Pinot Nero grape variety and a conviction in organic farming have defined this winery's direction right from the start. And last but not least, we're joined by Michela Moratori from Villa Crespia Winery. Michela is the marketing and communication manager at Villa Crespia, where she is also the co-owner, along with various members of the Moratori family. The winery owns vineyards in each of the 6 vocational zones in the Franciacorta region and have long aimed to represent those zones through their single vineyard wines, which are typically produced as zero dosage bottlings. So welcome everybody. Thank you for making the time to join me today. And I would love to just kick off our conversation. I'm a teacher at heart, so I always have to start by defining what we're going to talk about. So my first question is for you, Michela. You're going to start us off and help us understand, for people who are joining us, maybe not familiar with the term, what is dosage? What does it mean?
Okay, thank you, May. Can you listen to me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
When I will explain technically what does it mean, and when we talk about Franciacorta, we are talking about a wine with 2 alcoholic fermentation. After the second fermentation in the bottle and the fining on the yeast have ended, we do the gorgement. In this phase, we add sugar, a certain quantity of sugar that defines the kind of Franciacorta we are going to prepare. And if in a brut, we can add till 12 gram liter sugar, in a Padose zero dosage, you can add just till 3 gram liter sugar. So it's a quite huge difference that defines a very different wine, a very dry, but not even dry, but a very complex wine.
Great. Okay, thank you. So zero dosage or a Dosagio Zero is a wine where you're not making any any addition of dosage. Okay, perfect. Thank you. That was wonderful. So my next question is to you, Giuseppe. So how is it different? Michela just explained technically how they're different, but how is it different in terms of the expression of the wine between, say, a Brut, which is what most people are familiar with, and a Dosagio Zero? How are the wines different on your palate or in the expression?
Well, May, first off, thanks for your great introduction. I really love also how you described Padosé. Brut, on the one hand, is Franciacorta all-time classic. So Franciacorta with addition of a liqueur. Padosé is a wine that goes to the point. So the lack of the dosage leaves completely the stage to the varietal notes of the grapes. So we'll find more notes of fruits, for instance, and at the same time, it will leave more space to the flavors coming from the work of the yeast. So maybe we'll find sometimes tertiary aromas, which can come from breadcrumbs or even honey in certain cases. So in other words, to make a comparison, Padosé and Brut are kind of cooking of a steak. A medium rare steak is like Padosé. It's the purest taste of a steak that you may find.
Okay, I like the analogy to the steak. Wonderful, thank you. And can I just elaborate one quickly on that? Do you feel more of the expression of the acidity in the Dosagio Zero wines?
Well, for sure, I would find more of the expression of the dryness of the wine, not always of the acidity. So that will depend on the aging. So in certain cases, I may decide to, personally, I'll work on a longer aging for a Padosé to balance the acidity of the wine with the dryness. So it really depends.
Okay, great. Thank you. I like your distinction between the dryness and acidity. That makes a lot of sense. Great. So moving on to Stefano. Stefano, we've definitely noticed a trend that these drier wines are becoming more and more popular. I say conservatively in the last 6 to 10 years. Why do you think that is? Why do you think these drier styles are becoming more and more popular? What's your thought?
I think it's a question of people and tourism. The world of people who taste sparkling always search particular products. And I think the Franciacorta is a little area with a very exclusive product. Is a niche, and people who search the niche search something of unique and fantastic. And I think that all the best people who drink wine and that are more technical of the other search something not unique or not compromise with no other things in the wine. And so I think that we are with the Franciacorta, the idea that the best people who search high quality search this kind of wine that are more technical, more linear, more clean, more perfect with the balance of the sugar. And I think that it's a question of Franciacorta shows the best customer for this wine.
Right. I love it. So there's really nowhere to hide in a way with the Dosagio Zero wine. It has to be perfect in terms of its balance.
Second reason, I think, is a climatic question, climatic moment. Every people know that every year the sun is more hot, the temperature goes up, and so the maturity of the grape we arrive to the perfect maturation of the fruit expression, and this is important with the balance of the wine that born perfect in Italy, born perfect. And so I think it's not necessary to add the sugar at the end, and that is definitely more popular for the future for this kind of style.
Great, thank you. So coming back to you, Giuseppe, what grapes are used in the production of the Dosagio Zero wines? Anything in particular that is generally used for those wines?
Well, all of the 4 grape varieties allowed in Franciacorta can be used, which can be grouped in 2 areas. So the noble grapes, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and Pinot Blanc and Herba Mate. In the case of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, there is no kind of limitation in the blending. We may have some limitations in Pinot Blanc and in Herba Mate. Then it comes to the decision of the winery. So maybe some wineries looking for freshness, for the fruity notes, will work more on Chardonnay. Wineries that look more for structure and longevity will look more for Pinot Noir. And then there might be one exception with Rosé, where you have to use at least 1/3 of the blending on Pinot Noir.
Okay. So, and is there any minimum aging requirement for these wines?
Well, there are different aging requirements depending on the kind of Padosé we want to make. We can group them again in 2 areas: the vintages and the non-vintages. So non-vintages would be 18 months, and vintages instead would be either millesimato or riserva, so 30 and 60 months. But generally speaking, more and more wineries will tend to work on a Padosé that has a long refinement, so at least 30 to 40 months, which is exactly what I was saying before, so to balance dryness and acidity.
Right. So it's not so much that Dosagio Zero is not what stipulates the minimum aging requirement, it's the style, right? Whether it's being produced as a non-vintage or as a rosé or as a single vintage, it will then apply to
Correct.
those. Got you. Okay, great. And Michela, I know your winery has been, really very, very much in favor of the lower dosage wines. In terms of aging and ageability, do you find that the addition or lack of or absence of dosage plays a role in the wine's ability to age?
That's when you talk about aging, you talk about the times the wine lies on its yeast, and the dosage is at the end of the space. And the difference, I think, is the base wine, because base wine for a Padosé, I don't want to say they are more balanced, because even for a brut, you have to think about very high quality base if you want to do a high quality Franciacorta. But for sure, in a Padosé, you have no ultimate possibility to fix everything, I would say, when you were asking about the perception of acidity, I would think that maybe in a Padosé, the perception of acidity is enhanced in certain cases, because you don't have opportunity to add sugar that maybe in certain cases solve some lack of balance. I don't want to say that when you do a Padosé, you have to be more good, more precise, because every Franciacorta needs very, very, very much of attention, and the attention has to start in the vineyard, because when you do the harvest, but before, during this period, particularly June, July, even before, you have to pay attention to your grapes, because Padosé is the real expression of the grape. You should drink the grape in the glass when you drink a Padosé. This is what us with Villa Crespia has always tried to tell the terroir, to tell the difference of the feature of the soils, of the landscape. And with Padosé, you have the ultimate opportunity to do it, because you don't add anything of sugar, and it is a very direct and transparent expression of the soil of Franciacorta. That is what make our wines different and unique. They are unique in all around the world. You can drink sparkling made of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, but you cannot drink a Franciacorta. So that's the huge opportunity that we have with a Padosé to tell about our soils.
Great.
And our terroir.
Great, thank you. So you answered both my questions, because my next question was going to be, what are you really looking for in your base wines? So that's terrific, and I'm going to actually lead with that question also to my other panelists, because everybody has a different winery. Every winery has a different style and what you're looking for. So Giuseppe, at your winery with your mother, what are the characteristics you're looking for in your Dosagio Zero wines?
Well, so look at that point, we have to go back again to the aging. So we only make Padosé, which is millesimato. So currently it's a 2013 vintage. So to make that survive through time, the first necessary characteristic needs to be acidity. So I may look into the grape juice, so mosto primo fiore, so the side of the juice that has the strongest acidity, which will be the one which will allow the wine to last for a longer time and evolve. And that will again produce, if I think of our Padosé, notes of chestnut honey, for instance. So evolutions.
Beautiful. And I like chestnut honey. And Stefano, what are you looking for in your base wines for the Dosagio Zero?
In Camilucci winery, we produce 9 kind of different Franciacorta, all are Dosagio Zero. As a philosophy, is a project. The project starts in the harvest. Until the end, we search the best expression of the maturity. The wine is well balanced. Normally, don't need the sugar, and that is our philosophy. All the winery produce wine without sugar added is gorging.
That's very interesting. So your entire range is basically Dosagio Zero. Okay, so we knew there's a reason we picked you for this panel. Okay, so let's talk about food, because it is 12 o'clock here in New York, and people are probably getting ready to eat if they're not enjoying their lunch right now while we're speaking. So, Stefano, favorite food for your wine?
Every food, every Italian food. I think I like very much the pairing with the risotto. I think is when the risotto is very delicate, it's fantastic matching with Franciacorta. But there are a lot of products that are perfect with Franciacorta. Risotto for me is one of the best.
Wonderful. Is it a regional food? Do you make a lot of risotto in their area?
See, there is also risotto produced with Franciacorta, but I don't make this sense of the in general a good risotto with vegetable, little fish, interesting with Franciacorta.
Sounds great. Giuseppe, what about you? What's your favorite pairing?
So, well, since Padosé, it's a Franciacorta that goes to the point. It has structure, it has acidity. I look for some food which is rich in flavor and it's savory. So I'd go for a platter of a selection of raw fish. So kind of a sashimi, for instance.
Okay, sounds good. And Michaela, what about you?
Yeah, I'm for local foods, so I say local fish. You know, we are on Lake Iseo, so we have lake fish, and we have a lot of fish. But since Padosé is very strong, full body, normally they are very full body wines. I would pair it with a very strong food that even a slow food presidio. I don't know if you know slow food in US. Is a sardine, so it's a very small fish that is has a long tradition in the production because they are dressed on this net in Monte Isola, that is the island in Lake Iseo.
Yeah.
And they are very savory, very salty, very strong taste. That I think the pairing is very challenging because the food, the sardine is very strong in its flavor. But I would say Franciacorta Padosé it has to be strong itself. So the pairing, I think it can be good.
Sounds great. Yeah, I love actually when I've visited the region, that's one of my favorite things to do is to go out on the lake and go to the island and eat at a restaurant there and just enjoy a lot of the local food. It's wonderful. Thank you. Now you've all made me very hungry. And you've given me ideas for my lunch. So before we wrap up our conversation, Stefano, we've heard you're a big advocate of the Dosagio Zero. So do we have a sense today what percentage of overall production in Franciacorta is being produced as Dosagio Zero?
At the moment is, I think, is low, 3-4% for the total production. I think the trend is not to remain in this low percent, because the trend, as we told before, is going up. Question of climate, question of customers, and if Franciacorta, so if Franciacorta shows their customer, I think Franciacorta will give the direction for wine with low dosage.
Yeah, great. So you expect that the trend will just continue to grow? Yeah. Well, I certainly hope so, because I do very much love those wines. Well, this was wonderful. Thank you so much. We have a few questions coming. I see something in the Q&A. I know Constance is magically joining us through the power of Zoom, and she's going to ask you some questions that we've been getting while we've been chatting. So Constance, over to you.
Yes, so I think the first can be for you, Stefano. Does anyone use Yerba Mate grapes in the Pas d'Ossé wines now?
See, and as I told before, I produce only Dosagio Zero. So all the production for us is with no sugar, and the idea is to be very, very natural style with no other adding in the wine, because with the aging may give some different flavor, tasty. We prefer remain very, very pure. I don't know if that is your question.
I think it's just general use of Yerba Mate and Pas d'Ossé. So I don't know, maybe Giuseppe, you have additional information or otherwise?
I mean, I totally agree with what Stefano said.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Michaela, do you think that the Dosagio Zero category will continue to grow in Franciacorta?
For sure, I hope so, because as Stefano said before, the percentage is very, very low. The percentage we sell about Pas d'Ossé is 3-4, as he said. You think that we sell 80% of Franciacorta, the 80% of Franciacorta sold is a brut. So I think we should maybe even change mentality in drinking Pas d'Ossé, because very often you think about, we talk about food pairing, but Pas d'Ossé can even be drink as an aperitif, paired just with some cheese or something that you find as an aperitif, because and this maybe could change the idea of drinking Pas d'Ossé, maybe choose instead of a brut Pas d'Ossé, because there is a huge opportunity to drink Pas d'Ossé. Every winery in Franciacorta has a Pas d'Ossé. We produce 3 Pas d'Ossé in our range, and we produce 10 wines.
Great. Another question just came through for you, Michaela. What vintage is your most recent release of Numero 0?
As you talk about, it depends where you are drinking it, because you know, we sell in US, and you know, the times for selling wines are long, and even the times in selling them. But normally we like it because it's very good when we hear about people that drink Numero 0 that maybe has late vintages, but is still very good, and they like it for its full body. And in this sense, the Pas d'Ossé, after the Gorgement Sboccatura, that is the year you can always read on the back label of Franciacorta, is maybe better, I would say, than a brut. Drinking a Pas d'Ossé after more years from the gorging. I would say a Pas d'Ossé can last more. or remains with its peculiarities and balance.
Great.
This is my idea, my experience with my winery and what I drink here in Italy and all around the world.
Okay. Stefano, can you make a Dosagio Zero Satan?
It's a difficult question. Satin for law is only Brut, but Brut I think is a category of the past, because Brut is less of 12 grams per liter. Every wine of quality is less of 12 grams per liter of sugar acidity. So we produce Satin, and there is no sugar in the Satin. In the label is Brut, because zero is 12, is less of 12. Depends on the wine, depends of the wine. But normally, if the wine is perfect, the sugar to add is very, very little or nothing.
I would add something about Satin, because Satin is very much, it's something about Franciacorta, you know, it's a trademark of Franciacorta. You can drink a Brut, a Pas d'Osé from every latitude of the world, but if you ask for a Satin can be just a Franciacorta.
Okay. And the last question is for you, Giuseppe. Are a lot of the producers making Dosagio Zero rosé wines?
Well, at the moment, not many, because it's a very specific kind of wine. But if a trend of Pas d'Osé will continue in the future, for sure, consumers will look for more varieties in the selections of Pas d'Osé, and therefore will look also for more Pas d'Osé rosé. But at the moment, really very few wineries produce Pas d'Osé rosé version.
Great. Well, I think that is all of our questions for today. So thank you very much. And I'm going to go.
Thank you, Constance.
Awesome.
That's wonderful. Yeah, you know, I think one of the things that I will just chime in, just in general, when I've been talking to producers in Franciacorta, even when you are producing Brut styles, in general, they do tend to be on the lower end of the spectrum. I find a lot of producers are, you know, maybe at 5 or 4 grams per liter of sugar in Franciacorta, whereas oftentimes in other regions, you're maybe closer to 9. So, you know, so even though a lot of wines may be labeled as Brut, and, you know, Brut is still 80%, I think, of what's coming out of Franciacorta, technically, I think a lot of them could actually be labeled as extra Brut, you know, because they're kind of coming in under those numbers. But yeah, it's interesting, Stefano, what you said about Satin, because it really, it's, you know, Brut is 0 to 12, right? And you can interpret that wherever you want to interpret it. So technically, it would still be a Brut. So I have just one quick question, actually. Are your wineries, and I'll just call on you, Stefano, are you working with Erba Mate at all?
No.
No. And what about you, Giuseppe?
No, not at the moment. Mainly, we work a lot on Pinot Noir.
Yeah, you're big fans of Pinot Noir. And Michela?
Yeah, we are a big fan of Pinot Noir too. We do a Pas d'Osé Blanc de Noir. And I would say it's the most difficult Franciacorta we produce because, you know, Pinot Noir is body and structure, the grape itself, while Chardonnay is more elegant and finesse. So if you do a 100% Pinot Noir, Pas d'Osé, you do a very, very, very complex wine. But our Cisiolo. We produce Cisiolo since we are born. And it comes from a single vineyard, the Fornaci in Adro, and again, it's the expression of the soil. What's the best way to tell a vineyard, to tell a landscape of a Pas d'Osé? And that's our philosophy.
Yeah, no, I've had that wine. It's beautiful. Are you working with Erba Mate at all? Or you have any interest in it? No. So all three of you are not.
It's a new. It's something new in Franciacorta. Of course, we are interested because you know, sparkling wines with these grapes, international grapes, are very common, and Erba Mate is a local grape. We are the local trend. We are studying as a consortium. We are studying it, but you know, to produce a Franciacorta is a long way. we are sure about what we have. I'm speaking about Villa Crespia. When you decide to change, to introduce a new grape, you have to be very sure, you have to learn more. Our idea is to introduce it, maybe in the Brut, but we are still thinking about it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. This wraps up our chat today about Dosagio Zero wines. I very much enjoyed our conversation. I hope people go out there and try all of your wines because they are wonderful. And just to mention what's coming up next, we will be closing out our winemaker panel discussions next week on Monday, the 28th, with a discussion about the Reserva category and the ageability of those wines. And joining the panel will be Maurizio Zanella from Ca del Bosco Winery, Lucia Balzano from Il Mosnel Winery, and Francesca Palladin from Castello Bonomi Winery. So I hope that you will join us for our last discussion. That will be next Monday, June 28th. And have a wonderful rest of the day. Stefano, Giuseppe, and Michela, thank you so much for joining me today. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Thank you, May.